Gweneth Sampson can't remember a time when she did not write short stories. As far back as grade school, there were tales of mystery and adventure. She has had several of her stories published in medical arts journals. These days, she has more time to focus on her love of narrative, enjoying Muskoka as the perfect backdrop. She will continue to hone her skills this fall as she participates in a creative writing program offered through Humber College. Gweneth is reading today from her short story entitled Ted. Ted is a complicated old codger who is sorting out his future, which includes the relationship with his family and how he wants to live out the rest of his life. Gweneth Sampson.
When Ted thought of Rose, it was often about her hair. He'd been the first one to notice the bare spot on her scalp. Maybe he could have handled it differently. Maybe he should have handled lots of things differently. She had been bending forward to pick up some kitty kibbles off the floor, and there it was, at the crown of her head, a 2-inch hairless patch. "What's wrong with your head?" "What do you mean, what's wrong with my head? My head is fine." "Did you bump it or something? You've got a funny spot right at the top." "A funny spot? What kind of funny spot? Like hair dye?" "No, like no hair." Together they had ended up in the bathroom fumbling with a handheld mirror, trying to get the best angle so Rose could see the area reflected in the larger mirror in front of them. She cried softly when she saw it. Ted offered up explanations. Maybe she'd rubbed the hair off during her sleep, or perhaps her hairdresser had burned her scalp when she last had her hair colored. Neither suggestion stopped the silent flow of tears. Rose wanted to call Kathy, which Ted thought was ridiculous, because what could their daughter do, which even led to more tears, which further led to Ted exiting the bathroom and making a beeline to the kitchen. He searched through their small personal directory, found the number he was looking for, and called it. "Dr. Heath's office, how may I help you?" "I need an appointment for my wife." "That's no problem, sir. Does she need a short or long appointment?" "I don't know. How should I know? All I know is that she needs to be seen right away." "If this is an emergency, sir, you should hang up and dial 911 or go to the nearest hospital emergency department." "It's not like that kind of an emergency. That's not what I said. She needs to be seen as soon as possible." "May I ask the nature of the problem?" Rose had entered the room. "No, just give me an appointment." There was a pause. "Okay, sir. Dr. Heath is in our urgent care clinic tomorrow night. There are no booked appointments for urgent care. It's first come, first served. So if you don't mind sitting and waiting for a bit, at least she'd be seen within the next 24 hours. "Fine, we'll be there." The following evening, Ted drove the two of them to the medical center. He grunted when he saw the crowded room. Rose touched his arm. She registered with reception. They sat separately as there were no empty chairs left together. When Rose was called, Ted stood up, but she insisted she go in to see the doctor herself. Ted looked at her and shrugged. That left him with the squawking babies and a pimply teenager who, Ted was convinced, made no effort to control his hacking cough and was responsible for spewing thousands of germs across the waiting room. Afterwards, they rode home in silence, and Rose only spoke when they were settled in their apartment. "Dr. Heath says I have alopecia." "What's alopecia?" "It's hair loss." "Well, we know that. Did she say how you got it?" "She says it might be from stress or some immune thing. Nobody really knows why. She wants me to see a dermatologist. She said I could lose all my hair." She did. She lost it all. It was as if she were molting. The hair on her head fell out in clumps, and within 3 months, every follicle on her body was gone. Even her eyebrows and eyelashes disappeared, in addition to the fuzz in her armpits and pubic area. None of the creams Dr. Heath prescribed fixed the problem. Kathy ranted about the delay getting into the specialist. Rose started to wear bandanas or hats whenever she'd leave the apartment. People in their building asked Ted privately if Rose was having chemotherapy. It got to the point where she didn't want to go anywhere or see anyone. "We'll get you a wig." "Where do I get a wig?" "Maybe Dr. Heath can help us." "What about my eyebrows? Can't you use makeup or something? It rubs off." Okay, we can ask Dr. Heath about that as well." Ultimately, not even the specialist could reverse Rose's hair loss. Dr. Heath connected them to a medical supplier who made custom wigs. The dermatologist suggested Rose see an esthetician with expertise in eyebrow tattoos. Once again, Ted drove Rose to the appointment, but this time it was his decision to stay in the waiting room. He had enough needles of his own to deal with. When Rose emerged, she was swollen and red above her eyes and had 2 brown feathered lines where her natural brows had once lived. She kept telling Ted that she thought the left one was higher than the right, and he'd say that it was probably just the swelling and in a few days it would be okay. Except it wasn't. Ted clearly saw that the eyebrows didn't match and was emphatic that he be the one to point that out to the esthetician at the follow-up appointment. The technician seemed unaffected by his accusation. Eyebrows are like sisters, not twins. It wouldn't look natural if they were identical. After all, this gives her face a natural beauty. Ted spoke slowly in a low monotone. My wife is 77 years old. This isn't a beauty contest. I just want her to be happy, so you need to do something to fix this. He thought he'd adjusted to his wife's new appearance. Discounting her eyebrows during the day, she looked pretty much the same to him. It was at bedtime there was an issue. The nighttime routine had remained unchanged as far as Ted being the first one to climb into bed. Typically, Rose would slip on her night socks and flick through a favorite magazine before she shut her lamp off. She now had a different evening practice that started with meticulously peeling off her brown wig, revealing a pasty, square, bald head. This part made Ted uneasy. He had never found Rose unattractive in the past. Making matters worse, she would stroke her hairpiece slowly with her fingers before placing it on a white styrofoam head she'd set on her bedside table. It was as if a faceless third party had joined them in the corner of the room. Ted had no way of knowing how much of a companion that hairpiece would become.